The champagne had gone flat an hour ago. Ethan. Cross sat alone at the corner table of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. His jaw tight, his fingers drumming against the white tablecloth with mechanical precision. $23 billion couldn't buy punctuality, apparently. His mother's carefully selected. Companion for the evening, some socialites. Daughter with impeccable credentials had stood him up again. This was the fourth arranged meeting in 2 months, and his patience had crystallized into something cold and brittle. He should leave. He had a merger to finalize, quarterly reports waiting on his desk, an empire that wouldn't run itself. But something kept him rooted to that chair, maybe pride, maybe stubbornness, or maybe the small, dying part of him that still hoped his mother might be right, that he needed someone to thaw the ice that had formed around his heart after Emily's betrayal 3 years ago. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" The voice cut through his thoughts like sunlight through storm clouds. Ethan looked up, ready to deliver his standard dismissal, but the words died on his lips. She was nothing like what he expected. No designer dress, no perfectly coiffed hair, no calculating gleam in her eyes. Instead, a young woman stood before him in a worn waitress uniform. Her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Her shoes were scuffed, her apron stained, and she carried herself with the particular weariness of someone who'd been on their feet for too many hours. "I think you have the wrong," he began. "Please," she interrupted, her voice cracking slightly. "Just for a moment. My manager thinks I'm bothering customers by standing around. But my shift doesn't end for another hour and my feet are killing me. I just need 60 seconds to sit down." There was something raw in her plea, something achingly human that bypassed every wall he'd built, against every instinct, against every rule he'd set for himself. Ethan gestured to the empty chair. She practically collapsed into it, closing her eyes and releasing a breath that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." "You work here?" Ethan asked, surprising himself with the question. He never engaged in small talk with service staff. Not out of cruelty, but out of habit. They existed in different worlds, and he'd learned long ago to keep those worlds separate. "3 jobs, actually," she said, opening her eyes. They were brown, he noticed, warm and deep despite the exhaustion swimming in them. "This is my second shift today. I finish here. Then I've got overnight inventory at a warehouse in Queens." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Living the dream, right?" "That's brutal," Ethan heard himself say. "Why?" She studied him for a moment, as if trying to determine whether he actually cared or was just being polite. "My little brother. He's got leukemia. The treatments are expensive, and insurance only covers so much. Our parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. So it's just me now." She said it matter-of-factly, as if reciting a grocery list. But Ethan caught the tremor beneath the words. Something shifted in his chest, a crack in the permafrost. "I'm sorry," he said and meant it. "That's a lot for one person to carry. We do what we have to do, right?" She glanced toward the kitchen nervously. "I should get back. Thank you for letting me sit. Most people would have just told me to get lost." She started to rise, but Ethan found himself speaking before he could think better of it. "Wait, have you eaten today?" She froze. That's not really your concern." "Answer the question." The authoritative tone in his voice, the one he used in boardrooms, made her sink back into the chair. "I had some crackers this morning," she admitted quietly. Food costs money. Money is for Tommy's treatments. Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Shame. Here he was, a man who spent more on his watch than most people earned in a year, sitting in a restaurant where the appetizers cost $50, pitying himself over a failed blind date. And across from him sat a woman who hadn't eaten all day because she was too busy saving her brother's life. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya. Maya Chen." "Maya, I'm Ethan, and you're going to eat dinner with me." Her eyes widened. "I can't. I'll get fired. I'm supposed to be working, not sitting with customers, and definitely not." "How much do you make here per shift?" She blinked at the sudden question. About $80 after taxes. Why?" Ethan pulled out his wallet and placed $500 bills on the table. "There, that's 6 shifts. Now sit down and eat." Maya stared at the money like it might bite her. I don't take charity. It's not charity. Consider it payment for your company. I was stood up tonight, and eating alone in a place like this is depressing. It was a lie, but a kind one. You'd actually be doing me a favor. She looked torn, her pride warring with her exhaustion and hunger. Finally, hunger won. Okay, but I'm paying you back. We'll see about that. Ethan signaled the waiter, the same one who'd been shooting Maya worried glances. We'll have 2 of the filet mignon, medium rare, the roasted vegetables, and bring a proper meal for the lady, soup to start the works. Sir, the waiter said carefully, she's an employee. She's not supposed to. She's my guest tonight, Ethan said, his voice dropping to a temperature that could freeze oceans. Is that going to be a problem? No, sir. Of course not, sir. As the waiter scurried away, Maya shook her head in disbelief. You didn't have to do that. Maybe I did. Ethan leaned back, studying her. Tell me about your brother. About Tommy. And she did. As the food arrived, more food than she'd probably seen in a week, Maya talked. She told him about Tommy's love of dinosaurs, about how he wanted to be a paleontologist when he grew up, about his brave face during chemotherapy sessions that made grown men cry. She talked about their parents, about the life they'd had before the accident, about the weight of being 24 and solely responsible for another human life. Ethan listened, really listened, in a way he hadn't listened to anyone in years. He watched her eyes light up when she talked about Tommy's latest drawing, watched them dim when she mentioned the mounting medical bills. And with each word, each story, each glimpse into a life so different from his own, something inside him began to shift. When she excused herself to use the restroom, Ethan made a phone call. David, it's Ethan Cross. I need you to pull some strings. There's a kid, Tommy Chen, being treated for leukemia. I want him transferred to Sloan Kettering, assigned to the best oncology team. All expenses covered under an anonymous donor. Everything, treatment, medication, experimental therapies if necessary. Money is not an object. No, she doesn't know. And David, I need this done by tomorrow morning. When Maya returned, Ethan asked her something he hadn't asked anyone in 3 years. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Just to talk? She stared at him, clearly confused. Why would someone like you want to have coffee with someone like me? Because, Ethan said slowly, choosing his words carefully, in the last 2 hours, you've reminded me what it means to be human. You've shown me what real strength looks like. It's not in boardrooms or bank accounts. It's in getting up every day and fighting for someone you love, even when you're exhausted and hungry and scared. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes, she whispered. That night marked the beginning of something neither of them expected. Coffee turned into weekly dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through Central Park. Ethan met Tommy, whose enthusiasm for dinosaurs was infectious, whose courage in the face of his illness was humbling. The hospital transfer went through. Maya's shock and tears when she learned about it almost undid Ethan completely. She tried to find out who the donor was, but he'd covered his tracks well. As weeks turned into months, Ethan found himself changing. The cold, calculating CEO who'd sat alone in that restaurant began to thaw. He laughed more. He noticed people around him, really noticed them. He established a foundation to help families struggling with medical expenses. He showed up at Tommy's hospital room with books about dinosaurs and terrible jokes that made the kid giggle. And Maya? She blossomed when the crushing weight of financial despair lifted from her shoulders. Her smile came more easily. Her dreams, shelved for so long, began to resurface. She wanted to be a teacher, she confessed one evening. She wanted to help kids like Tommy, kids who needed someone to believe in them. Ethan made it happen, paying for her college courses, insisting it was an investment, not charity. You're going to change lives, Maya. This isn't about money. It's about making sure you get the chance to do what you were meant to do. 1 year after that blind date that changed everything, Ethan found himself back at the same restaurant at the same table. But this time, Maya sat across from him, wearing a dress he'd bought her, though she'd insisted on wearing her, old shoes, claiming they were lucky. Tommy's latest test had come back clean. Remission, the doctor said, using that beautiful, miraculous word that meant hope. Do you remember that night? Ethan asked, taking Maya's hand across the table. When you sat down by mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Maya said softly. I knew this table was occupied. I saw you sitting here looking so sad and alone, and something just pulled me over. I made up that excuse about my feet hurting. They did hurt. But that wasn't why I came over. I came over because you looked like someone who needed to remember he was human. Ethan felt his throat tighten. You saved me, Maya. You and Tommy both. I was drowning in my own bitterness, and I didn't even realize it. We saved each other, she corrected. You gave me hope when I was ready to break. You gave my brother a future. You gave us both a life worth living. Marry me, Ethan said suddenly, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess them. I don't have a ring yet. I didn't plan this, but I can't imagine another day without you in it. You've taught me that. Wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in moments like this. In kindness, in love, in showing up for the people who matter. Marry me, Maya Chen. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Around them, the restaurant erupted in applause. Other diners who'd been eavesdropping. Waiters who'd witnessed their unlikely love story unfold over the past year. And in that moment, Ethan understood something profound. Sometimes the most important meetings aren't the ones you plan. Sometimes, the person who changes your life forever is the one who sits down by mistake, exhausted and hungry and desperate, and reminds you that beneath all the armor, beneath all the wealth and power, you're still human, still capable of feeling, still capable of love. The blind date's chair had been empty, waiting for someone who never came. But Maya had filled it instead, and in doing so, filled the emptiness in Ethan's heart that he'd forgotten was even there. They left the restaurant hand in hand, walking into a future neither of them had expected, but both of them had desperately needed. Behind them, the empty chair at the corner table stood as a testament to the beautiful accident that had brought them together, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we never plan, from the kindness we show to strangers, and from the courage to let someone in when every instinct tells us to stay closed off. Love, Ethan had learned, wasn't found in carefully curated blind dates or society connections. It was found in the mess and the struggle, in the honest moments between two people who see each other, really see each other and choose to stay anyway. And that, he thought as Maya squeezed his hand and smiled up at him, was worth more than all the billions in the world.